Hello everyone, this is the Sports Spiral, and in today's video I'm going to have a look at the college football playoff, the NFL Week 14, and I'm going to recap everything that happened. So we get right into this, the conference championships for college football. Georgia was able to handle LSU as expected. They dominated most of the game. Georgia's in to the playoff. Uh, Yes, they're the number one seed for Georgia. And then ACC Clemson did get it done for North Carolina. Klubnik came in as quarterback for them, and after being benched, Uyangalale entered the transfer portal. So we already have so many players in the transfer portal. It seems like the transfer portal now. It's like the free agency for college football, and it's so common nowadays. Any notable player, like they all leave. Like it's gonna be very rare here soon to have a player that's actually on the team 3 or 4 years. So crazy stuff going on. Obviously, very controversial. You know, maybe they should make some kind of rule. You have to at least stay the team for. I don't know if they have rules like this, but you have to at least stay at the team for 2 or 3 years. Stuff like that. I think they might need to put into effect. It's also like another source of recruiting. So if someone doesn't like their school that much, and this other school is doing really good recruiting, they can go head down there if they want. So uh, very interesting to see where all these players will go, but that will be for the end of the season when they announce that. Utah, they get the upset. They knock USC out of the playoff. Uh, Very disappointing for USC. It's winning in, and they just couldn't get it done. Utah, they climb inside the top 10. Uh, Started the season with the loss, but they do end it with a win. So it's not really that disappointing of a season for Utah. It's a good season there. And then Michigan, they were able to handle business versus Purdue as expected. And then Tulane, they outlast UCF. And then Kansas State, they were able to provide the upset. They beat TCU, but not by enough points to knock TCU out of the playoff. TCU is in. Ohio State climbs into the picture. And then you have Georgia and Michigan, of course. So just one loss for me here. And I know it's pretty controversial that Alabama didn't get in there. They probably shouldn't have gotten in. They would. I mean, the only consideration for Alabama would have been, if TCU had got blown out bad and went down from 3-5. But I think they have it right. I think they have Ohio State at 4. I think that's fine because TCU, they only lost by like 3 points. They put up a great fight, and they're probably gonna get blown out in the playoff. But let me get to that right now. So we have first of all the some of the like group of 5 teams here. These are all the bowl games, and we have Texas San Antonio going against Troy. So that's a pretty interesting one. Both of those teams just got ranked, and I think San Antonio is gonna win that one just by looking at them. They seem like they're a slightly better team, but I'm not very good at some of those obscure group of top 5 teams. But it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I think something about Texas San Antonio, it's a quarterback. He was coming back for like the 6th year next year, so that's probably a big reason why they were so good. And then Oregon State, number 14 in the country. It's been a very good season for them. They're going against Florida in Las Vegas. Uh, this one will be certainly interesting. Florida likes the Pac 12 teams after going against Utah earlier in the season, but they're going to be very short-handed, as some of these Power 5 teams typically are. And Anthony Richardson declared for the NFL draft, and a bit of a surprise there. So they have to go with quarterback Jack Miller from Ohio State for that game. So likely a win for Oregon State there, as Florida will be shorthanded. And then you have Louisville going against Cincinnati. And there's some Kentucky neighbors here. And so I think Louisville gets this one done, just being a Power 5 team. They're going against better teams throughout the season, so they should have the leg up on Cincinnati there. And then SMU going against BYU. Both of these teams, not the greatest season for them. They're like the non-Power 5 teams. But once again, I think SMU gets this one done. Kind of a disappointing season for BYU after a few good seasons in the past. And then you have Washington State. They're going against Fresno State. So I think Washington State, they have the Power 5 advantage. That's going to be a big difference in most of these games. And then you have Boise State going against North Texas. So I think once again, Boise State, they had a few good seasons in the past 5 years or so. Not as good this year, but I think they still beat out UNT. And then you have Liberty going against Toledo. I think Liberty gets this one done. And then Baylor, I think you could say they have the Power 5 advantage again versus Air Force. Just, that's typically how these games wind up. Houston, they should be able to beat Louisiana Lafayette. And then you have Wake Forest and Missouri. Missouri, really, I'm kind of surprised that they're 6-6. I would guess that they would have been 5-7. They've just been, pretty boring Met team. So I think that should be a win for Wake Forest. Wake Forest a little bit disappointing. They started out the season quite good, and they've really fallen off, but I think they are still the better team. And then a battle of the Carolinas. It's East Carolina versus Coastal Carolina, and the American. It's a slightly better. It's a better conference there, so I think ECU should be able to win that one. And then Wisconsin going against Oklahoma State. Wisconsin awaiting Luke Fickell's arrival there next year. I think they should beat out Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, another one of those teams. They were good, the past few years, but they really fell off this year. It's a lot different. The teams really kind of shifted around this year, which is quite exciting. And then Duke going against UCF in what should be a pretty good matchup. I think Duke, they're in the ACC. They have the theoretical Power 5 advantage that I keep talking about. I think they get that one done. And then Arkansas going against Kansas. Kansas, they're 6-6. They were going really good. Then they stumbled a little bit. The dream was a bit too high of a goal to go like 9-3 or whatever. But I think Arkansas had the SEC advantage here, and I keep talking about these advantages, but I swear that's how most of these bowl games work. And then Oregon going against North Carolina. I'm a big fan of this matchup. I think both Bo Nix and Drake May are gonna play in this one, so it should be a very interesting quarterback battle. So I think Oregon gets it done. Maybe they're a little more experienced there, so I do have Oregon in that one. But that should be a pretty exciting game. Then we have Ole Miss, another disappointing team this season. They're going against Texas Tech. Should be able to win that one. And then Minnesota going against Syracuse. Minnesota's one of those teams, they kind of quietly go. I think they went 8-4 this season, in that Big Ten West Division where it's kind of a free-for-all. And it seems like they just randomly pick one of those 8-4 teams to go to the conference championship. Purdue was that team this year. I think Minnesota gets it done there. And then FSU, it's been a very successful season there. They're going against Oklahoma. They've had a disappointing season at Oklahoma. I think this should be a win for FSU, at least by one score. But it could be an interesting game. We'll see, if Oklahoma gives up a fight. And then we have Texas. Not too bad of a season for Texas. They're going against Washington. I think this will be a good game, but I think Texas wins. And then Maryland going against NC State. I'm picking Maryland in this one. Then we have UCLA versus Pitt. I'm going to pick UCLA there. And then moving on to a pretty good matchup here, we have Notre Dame versus South Carolina. It's been a pretty good season for both of these teams. Nothing really good, but pretty good, solid teams here. I have Notre Dame getting the win here, though. And then Tennessee going against Clemson, the orange teams in the Orange Bowl. A lot of fun. I think Tennessee is going to have the power to beat Clemson here. I just think they're the better team. It'll be interesting to see, Clemson using Cade Klubnik if they can maybe kind of fix things at Clemson after they've fallen off the past few years. And then Alabama, number 5, just short. Their consolation, it's Kansas State. Very interesting matchup here. You not picture Alabama versus Kansas State in a bowl game. Doesn't really mean that Alabama's necessarily bad this year, but Kansas State, it's definitely been a surprise just how good they are this season. Alabama should be able to win this one, but you look at some of their games, they've been close, and yeah, this could definitely be a close game. It may be a blowout in favor of Alabama, but we'll see if that it's true. And then we have Iowa going against Kentucky. I believe Iowa should be able to beat Kentucky. And then Mississippi State, they should be able to beat Illinois. USC going against Tulane, very disappointed. I'm even a little disappointed here how much they dropped USC. I know they got blown out and lost to the same team twice, but back to 10 might even be a little harsh. So I feel like 8 or 9 would have been better. They're going against Tulane in the Group of 5 bowl where they throw in the best Group of 5 team. And it should be a win for USC, but under the radar, Tulane has actually been quite a good team this season. And then LSU, the loser of the SEC championship, going against the loser of the Big Ten championship, should be a LSU victory here. Because they just look better this season. They have more quality wins. So I've got LSU there. And then Utah going against Penn State. Utah should be able to win this one. They were able to beat Ohio State in the bowl last season, I believe. So I think they should be able to beat Penn State. So that's going to do it for the bold segment of this. Now I'm going to get into the playoffs. So having a look at the playoff this year, you have some familiar teams, but it's a little different this year. It's just one SEC team and 2 Big Ten teams. So what's really happening over these, the past 10 years or whatever, it's really, I think eventually, if what is happening continues, we're going to have the SEC and the Big Ten, and that's going to be it. Just from what I've been seeing, since those have typically been the dominant conferences, it's, a battle versus the SEC and the Big Ten. So, we have number 1 Georgia going against number 4 Ohio State. Very good matchup here in the semifinal. I'm glad they organized it like this. I don't know if they intended for a good game. But this is definitely going to be a good matchup. Ohio State, they're disappointing versus Michigan. We'll see if they can, get some revenge maybe by beating Georgia, and then maybe they'll beat Michigan in the finals. But I do think Georgia gets this one done 42-35. And then Michigan going against TCU. TCU, it's been very interesting them this year. They've had quite the underdog story. It's quite crazy that they are number 3 in the country. Hard to believe, but they are definitely going to be the underdogs versus Michigan. Michigan's been looking very good this year, and I am going to pick Michigan here 37-24, but we will see if the Hypnotoad can help TCU with a miracle to get into the finals. So that's it for college football. Now I'm going to move into the NFL, where we have the results of the past week. So having a look at the NFL, here are kind of the results. So the Bills, they beat the Patriots. The Steelers, they've been looking better recently. They won that game. The Packers, they were able to get it done versus the Bears. The Bears are really struggling badly. I mean, so are the Packers, but the Bears are even worse. And then a blowout for the Lions in that matchup. And then the Vikings, all of a sudden, the Vikings are 10-2. Very hard to believe. They beat the Jets, who are still doing pretty good. But yeah, the Vikings are 10-2. That's crazy. And then we have Washington. That was a tie game in that division. So we had a tie, but the second tie of the season between Washington and the New York Giants in that one. A blowout for the Eagles over the Titans. The Ravens scrape by the Broncos, but they do lose Lamar Jackson to an injury. Now, I think he's on a week-to-week status from what I hear. I don't know if he'll be able to come back. The Ravens are in a bit of a problem here. They got the win. They're 8-4. They may be able to make the playoff at this point, but they definitely are in a bit of a pickle. And then the Browns, Deshaun Watson returns. He's decent, gets it done. Versus the Texans, who really are struggling really badly out there. 1 win so far this season. And then Seattle, they beat the Rams. The Rams are in disarray as well. You have Matt Stafford's injured. I think a lot of their players are injured. They actually got Baker Mayfield from the Panthers just now. Baker Mayfield, he has not been playing well, but they just took him to have a quarterback, I think. And then you have the 49ers. They get it done versus the Dolphins, but they do lose Jimmy Garoppolo, and they already had lost Trey Lance, so they're on to their third string quarterback, Brock Purdy, for the rest of the season. Maybe Garoppolo will come back in the playoffs, but at this point, they're just going to have to stick with Purdy, and the defense is going to have to be dominant for the 49ers. And then you have the Chiefs. They lose to the Bengals. So the Bengals are definitely a big player in the AFC still. They're probably, I think you could consider them right up there with the Bills now. And then the Raiders beat out the Chargers. It has not been a good season for the Chargers. Very disappointing. I think they've had some injuries on defense, and just the defense, it's really not been great there. The Cowboys were able to handle the Colts, and then quite the comeback for the Bucks in Monday Night Football versus the Saints. But they're still only at 500, so if they're gonna succeed in the playoffs, Tom Brady is really gonna have to keep doing some special stuff, and yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what that team does. Now, looking at Week 14, here are my picks. The Raiders, they should be able to beat the Rams. The Rams, they have Mayfield. They've been struggling as they've been talking. And then the Bills, they should be able to win that game. Same for the Bengals. Yeah, you can just have a look at some of these games. I do have a bit of an upset alert, although the Lions are actually favored versus the Vikings. So I'm just gonna go with that, and it does seem like a good time for an upset. The Vikings are 10-2. It's about time for them to lose. I just went with it, and then just looking down at some of the interesting games. It's gonna be danger alert for the Ravens who are going against the Steelers. We'll see if they can win without Lamar. And then you go down the Bucks versus the 49ers. That's a pretty good game. That will be very interesting to see if the 49ers can win without Garoppolo. So will be a very interesting game. You have the Seahawks versus the Panthers, then the Dolphins versus the Chargers, and the Patriots versus the Cardinals. So not the best week of games in my opinion, but there are some interesting storylines with the building injuries. So that is going to do it for this video. Please make sure to subscribe and like, and this is the Sports Spiral. Bye.